All right, guys, so we're going to break down another internet guru talking about Jesus. Remember, this is for educational purposes only, so we are going to be discussing the ideas, not attacking the person.
The crucifixion and resurrection of Christ are both metaphysical concepts.
Right off the bat. Now, I'm going to break this video down without using any of my Christian bias, and we're strictly going to talk about it from a secular perspective. The crucifixion of Jesus Christ is one of the most well-attested to historical facts ever recorded in not only the ancient Near East, but in all of human history. To make the claim that this was just a metaphysical concept and that this didn't actually happen in real life is to go against every single thing we know to be true about history. If we're going to deny this, then we have to deny everything else that we know about the ancient Near East and everything else that we know about history, because the way that we come to the conclusions of whether something happened or not in history is by looking at the facts. And I'm sorry, but the facts point to Jesus Christ being an actual historical figure that was actually crucified by the Romans. Bart Ehrman, a biblical scholar and atheist, says, "The crucifixion of Jesus by the Romans is one of the most certain things we know about his life." Gerd Ludemann, a New Testament scholar and atheist, writes, "The crucifixion of Jesus is indisputable. So it's not a metaphysical concept, it's a historical fact."
Christ was crucified in the East, crucified in a location called Calvary. Once you translate Calvary in Greek, you'll get the word Golgotha. Golgotha in Aramaic means skull. Now, supposedly they say he was crucified on a skull-shaped hill.
So it's not supposedly he was crucified. He was actually crucified. We just discussed this. Now, Calvary is actually, it's not a direct translation from Greek. It actually derives from the Latin Calvaria, but that's just me nitpicking. There's also no evidence inside or outside of the Bible stating that Jesus was crucified on a hill that looked like a skull. We have no primary source for this belief. That's just what it was called. Biblical scholar Raymond E. Brown says, quote, "The Bible gives no indication that the site of Jesus' crucifixion was in the shape of a skull." End quote. Biblical historian Paula Fredrickson writes, quote, "There is no evidence the hill was shaped like a skull." End quote. It was just the hill's name.
Really and truly, Christ was crucified to the skull of man. Christ was crucified. He was nailed to our minds. The resurrection in itself is also a metaphysical concept because Jesus supposedly resurrected in the East, but there was no East that he resurrected in.
Okay, so Jesus supposedly resurrected in the same area that he was crucified in. It's not like he was crucified on Calvary and then reappeared in the United States in his resurrected form. No, he resurrected in the same area in which he was crucified, which is why we have so many eyewitness accounts of his resurrection. Now, whether you believe these accounts to be true or not is something that you'll have to dig into for yourself. But the fact is, historically speaking, Jesus' disciples and the people who were not his disciples saw him after he rose from the dead. Over 500 people attested that they saw Jesus in the area that he was crucified in after his death. So the supposed resurrection, which I believe actually happened in the same area he was crucified in. The claims to these sightings are a historical fact. It's not a metaphysical concept.
Resurrected in the East part region of the brain. If you get a map and you get a compass and you put it on, you'll see that East points to the right.
Well, if you get a compass and you're facing the south, East will be pointing to the left, but that's just me nitpicking again.
Specifically pointing to the right hemisphere of the brain. Christ awakens when you activate the right hemisphere of the brain, tapping into the intuition, the holistic knowledge, creativity, and compassion.
So to say that Christ awakens when you activate the right hemisphere of the brain, it's an unfalsifiable claim. I mean, if you're going to be speaking biblically, Christ is already awake. He's alive. You don't need to awaken him in the right hemisphere of your brain. But let's listen to what a neuroscientist has to say about the right hemisphere of the brain. Dr. Michael Gazzaniga. Wow, what an incredible name. A professor of psychology at the University of California, Santa Barbara says, "The right hemisphere is not the seat of the soul, nor of intuition or of spiritual experience, or of any other mysteries and mystical traits that have been attributed to it. Now, all this is just a retelling of Jesus' mythicism, where they explain how Jesus wasn't an actual historical figure and that, these are just mythical concepts, and we're to read the Bible allegorically and read the stories of Jesus Christ allegorically and through a really spiritualized, mystical lens. And understand, guys, this is an extreme minority of people who actually believe in Jesus' mythicism. And the reason why it's such a minority of people is because it goes against all of the processes of how we know if somebody historically existed or didn't. These are the same people who will tell you that you're the Christ, I'm the Christ, we are all the Christ, and that Jesus came to teach us Christ consciousness. Now, if you'll humor me for a minute, let me jump into the theological implications of this. You'll find this in my new book, Law of Attraction, a gateway drug to spiritual heroin. Not going to show the whole thing yet because I'm releasing the cover tomorrow. But in it, I quoted Jesus Christ in Matthew 24, verses 4 and 5. See to it that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. Listen to Jesus about who Jesus is. Listen to historians about what actually happened in history, not some random guy wearing a mask on TikTok. But anyway, if you want to see me debunk more of these internet gurus, check out this playlist right here. God bless. I'll see you on the next one.